Hello world, it's Dave again. I've got a new video for you here that's going to deal specifically with your experience you will have teaching English in Japan, depending on the type of school that it is that you have gotten a job in. The ones that I know most about are elementary school and junior high school in the public context, not the private school or cram school. So that's what I'm going to talk specifically about. So the first point that I discovered when I came over and I was going to get introduced to where I was going was that when you work in Japan, something that didn't ever seem to be made that clear is that you can potentially work at multiple schools. I didn't know this. I just thought you get assigned to a school. And so you can get assigned to upwards of 5 different schools. I ended up with 2, so I'm quite happy. I get that little bit of variety, but I'm not running all over the country to all these different locations. But you should be aware of that because 5 schools is pretty daunting. That's a lot of traveling that you have to do. Totally doable, but you should be aware. I figure that's something that when people get over, they shouldn't just be surprised by. Oh, by the way, you have 5 different locations that you work at. Once a week you're going to all these different places. The good news there is that with every company, and if your company doesn't do this, then I'd kind of push them for it. I'd wonder what they're doing, is they will cover your transport. So if you're out in the country and they provide you with a rental vehicle, or you're in the city and you're going to be catching subways all over the place to get to these locations, you're going to have that covered. You don't have to pay it. It'll be included in your check at the end of the month as a travel expense. So that's a little bit of peace of mind for you right there, that you don't need to be concerned so much about that. The next thing I want to jump right into is just the differences in the workload that you're going to have and type of work that you're going to have when you're at an elementary school as compared to a junior high school. And junior high school is the one that we'll start talking about first. And that is to say that when you go to a junior high school, you're dealing with grades 8, 9, and 10, I believe. And they call them grades 1, 2, 3. Another confusing thing for me because I showed up to the class and they were like, "This is grade 1." I was like, "Those are the biggest goddamn grade 1s I've ever seen before." And then later had explained to me. This shows how little I kind of knew going into the whole situation. I saw the workbooks and stuff, but I didn't know how it corresponded to my own country. Now, when you're in that school, they developed enough that their grammar is a lot better than elementary school. They're not just starting, they've been doing it for a little while. And because of that, your role in the classroom is going to be far more split. It's going to be something of a 50-50 relationship with the teacher that you're working alongside because the grammar is so complex. Unless you are really, really good at Japanese, you'd never be able to convey the grammar point to the class that needs to be conveyed. So you have to have that additional input from the Japanese teacher. You have to have them there telling them what it is that they need to know, unless you're a master of Japanese, which I'm not, and most who come over aren't. I'm slowly learning, it's an interest I have, but I could not explain high-level grammar points, or what I think are high-level grammar points, to junior high school kids. And so right there, you're already starting to see that your workload is probably going to be a bit lighter in this kind of scenario where you're at a junior high school. The difference then is that in elementary school, because they don't have this level of complexity, that you're going to be doing a hell of a lot more work. This is the reality because you can do all the work. They don't need a Japanese teacher as much to explain the grammar to the kids because there's far, far, far less grammar. So if you think you're coming over and you're trying to decide where you would go for the workload, don't jump to elementary school because you think it would be simpler. In fact, it's more complex because there is far, far more to do in terms of organizing the class and running it yourself. So for example, where in a junior high school, you can kind of take on a role, I hate to call it this, but kind of like a human tape recorder, where you might be there for things like pronunciation. They're going to do a whole bunch of new vocab, and the teachers introduce the grammar point. In the junior high school, they've said, now say these words, repeat after Dave Sensei. And then I'm going to say the different words that I have to say so they can get the pronunciation of them correct. They want you to mark work there because you have, when you sit down, you can identify what is wrong and right, and so that's good enough. And you might do that after the class, you might do that in the class. And then another role that you're going to have is to interact with an activity. So the teachers will very often have worksheets and they're handing them out into the class and they got to do them over the course of the class that you're in. and they want you to go around with all the kids, and if it's often partner work, then kids are missing from the class that day. You can be a partner for someone in the class, and you'll be good at it because hopefully you speak pretty good English. So those are some three major things: pronunciation, you can mark work, and you interact with the activities that they have. But in the class itself, that means that you're not spending that much time actually speaking. You can be pretty laid back and relaxed in a junior high school class. Now, in comparison, uh, elementary school, they want you to do everything. They'd want you to warm the class up. They'd want you to do a vocab intro. They'd want you to explain the basic or demonstrate the basic grammar point. It is more basic, but still, you're spending the time to do it. You design the exercises for the class. You design start to finish, pretty much you're responsible for everything in these elementary classes. And I know this from speaking as well. It's not just speculative. One of the guys that I live very close to works for the same company as I do. He is an elementary school teacher, and he can confirm this, that he is definitely busy the whole time, where realistically my lifestyle is a little more lax. I don't have as much to do at the school. So this then brings me to my next point, which is the amount that you work in a given day, which is how many classes you were assigned to in a day. And it was my impression that when I came over, that you're welcome to Japan. People work 34 hours a day here, so I'm gonna have to work 34 hours a day, and I was ready for it. I tried to steel myself, get determined. Not so, my friend. This is another big bonus. When you get assigned your school schedule, it'll say how many classes that you have assigned for that day. And the busiest day that I've had, now bear in mind, a school will have 8 classes in a day. That's kind of standard. The busiest day I've had so far is 5 classes, and it ranges between 5 to 2. So you can have days where you have a lot of free downtime, let me tell you, where you've got a lot of time spent in the office, and you should try and occupy this time well. I would say that it's very important to occupy this time well for a number of reasons, because if you're coming into a school where these people, aside from you, work incredibly long hours, and it's only human to build up resentment for someone who has a really lax schedule, paid relatively well even compared to you, and you see them in there just doodling on the desk all day. So if you can, try and be reading a book or studying Japanese or preparing something in addition for the classes. Whatever you can to stay proactive is going to go a long way for your reputation in the school, for all that downtime you have. Enjoy it, make use of it, but make sure that you're not just being lazy in that time. I think it'll go a long way to just for your whole general experience, and just for your peace of mind, because if you get those days with that downtime and you've not made any attempt to occupy yourself, you go nuts. You'll go absolutely nuts, just twiddling your thumbs with nothing to do, because they do happen. It's very important. Also, when I say that the workload is a little lighter in a junior high school than a elementary school, I should make the point as well that junior high school, no junior high school is made the same. So you can expect on average a lower workload compared to an elementary school, but each school is its own entity. So one school you might be a little bit more lax. You might end up with on average 3 classes a week or something like that. But then this other school, for whatever reason, their head sensei, their Kocho sensei, says, it's really important that we get as much out of this ALT, this teacher, as we can, this English teacher. So I want him in 5 classes a day for the time that he spends here. So the type of work that you're doing is still a little bit less, but that school may want you to do more. So don't just assume that with a variety of schools that you get assigned to, that it's all going to be the same experience. It really won't. Absolutely not. And this then brings me to my final point about this. When you get assigned to different schools, when you go out to whatever area it is that you're going to be stationed, decide for yourself your opinion of the schools that you're going to be assigned to. Because I can say, in my experience, I was only being told horror stories. I took over 2 schools where the guy who had left had done so because he just couldn't take it anymore. Or that was what I was told. And everybody said, oh, the kids here, oh, like you need eyes on the back of your head, this kind of thing. One school especially I was warned about for the behavior of the kids at it, and that I should be very concerned for where I was being sent. And when I got there, I tried to be open-minded about it and just, let my experience speak for what I would go through. And I was happily surprised. I don't know who it was who was there before me, but I really do feel it was something we create our own experience. Not saying that you can't come across difficult people, but if you come to something and you're resistant, you're not trying to change, and you have issues with the culture, it's going to be far, far, far more difficult for you because you're not willing to change. And if you believe these negative things that people say, you'll already go in with this really negative attitude, and you shouldn't do that. Decide for yourself. And then kind of the cherry on top is that the one that I was told was especially bad is the one that I've had the greatest experiences at. I enjoy my interactions with the staff the most, and I've got the closest relationships with the kids so far. So look at that. There you go, right? Just go in, have your own experience of it. Um, Now, kind of a final point, for different experiences for the kids that you have at the schools, style of work. Generally, just a comment I'm going to make on the kids in the classes. Now, when I came over, people said to me, Dave, what age group do you want to teach? Do you want to teach a little younger, a little older? What is it? And what's your reasons for doing that? And I said, I want to teach kids who are a little bit older. In fact, and my justification for this is to say, when you're a little bit older, you've had some time to develop, and because of that, you're a more interesting personality. I didn't want to go and deal with these young kids drooling on themselves, no personality developed at all, no ability to interact with me, barely a personality. That's pretty harsh judgment for somebody who's in grade 8, but I just thought, it'd be a little better to have someone who's a little bit older. That's my opinion. I was wrong. I was dead wrong. This is the biggest mistake I made when I came over. My opinion of how people would be as a result of their age. And I like to make a little metaphor, a little analogy for this. Kids, when they're in younger grades, let's compare them. Let's say that they're in the Garden of Eden. And when you're in the Garden of Eden, you're blissful and you're ignorant, you're running around, you're naked, you're pissing on things, you don't care, you're just happy. And Adam and Eve, when they eat from the tree of wisdom and they leave the garden, gain knowledge, wisdom, and experience, and it turns them into horrible people. They suddenly realize what it is to be naked, to be self-conscious, to know fear, and this really changes us from being able to truly express just who we are. We get confused by all these other inputs. And so what I'm trying to say, maybe with greater complexity than I should, is that kids who are a little bit younger are far more themselves. They are not concerned with the thoughts of others, what it is to be cool. And as a result of that, you have incredible interaction with them. They're open. They're totally them. They don't think that English is stupid. They barely know anything about English, so why should they? Whereas kids in grades 9 and 10, 10 most obviously, 9 you've already seen a big change has occurred. They're clearly out of the garden. They're already starting to think about all these things that confuses a high school kid, and that's sexuality, that's being cool, that's relationships, that's social hierarchy, and it's really obvious, when I think back to my own high school experience, one of the worst things in school is school. I mean, you don't want to be there, and that's like number one. If you like school, then you're a nerd, so that already alienates you from your social group, and so that's 101, making it harder for you to teach these kids because they're more resistant to structures of control in the first place, let alone they don't want to look bad from their peers that they're showing an interest in something their peers don't have an interest in. And so be very, very careful with this because the older they get, the more that they withdraw into themselves. And it's just kind of a strange irony that we need to, as we become adults, become children again. We need to lose this obsession with thinking about what the concerns of everybody else is and where we stand in a social hierarchy. We should just be happy and ourselves and not concerned about these things. But this is actually what kids have figured out, at a very young age, they just don't know it. So don't be confused with that. If you think that teaching grade 10s is going to be the best, easiest thing, the grade 10s are the most difficult to break through to, the grade 3s. Maybe then the most rewarding because it's a big challenge for you and you succeeded, they like you. But don't think that these younger kids are going to be without personality. You're going to see all personality. You're going to see the whole person who is not clouded by all these other experiences, and it's great. It's really, really good. When I went in for my introductions, uh, I had a great time with the younger kids. Actually, I want to make a separate video of introduction and what you should try and achieve in an introduction, so I won't go into that now. Okay, last point for your experience at the junior high versus elementary, and this is very, very important, I think, to getting a good relationship set up in your school. And that is to say that when you finish your classes at the end of the day, of course you want to go home, you've been sitting around or whatever, but I would recommend, if you can, going to, oh, my camera's doing some crazy things. I would recommend going to after class events because all the kids are going to clubs. I think you should too. I think what you should do is try and be involved in these things, not necessarily to say that you should sign up, but if you can just sit and watch, this is really, really important. And what it's going to do for you is give you another medium to interact with the kids where they feel less pressure. Because when you're in the class, you got that strict sensei, gakusei, sensei, teacher-student relationship that's going on, and they don't get to relax much, you know? They don't get to, if they want to speak English and they're actually finally breaking through that social barrier, they're all worried about how the English is going to sound because everybody's looking at them. If you go to kendo class, I guarantee you'll hear more English than you've heard all day, and it's because they're not so worried about being judged anymore. They can enjoy kendo and they can enjoy speaking English, but in an environment that is not judging them so much. And for you, it's probably just interesting to see to see kendo in the first place, but you're going to develop a much more natural bond with the kids where when you go back to the class again, they're like, oh, that's that guy who actually has an interest in what we do. He's not just some figurehead comes in and he's just an English teacher there and gone. He has an interest in us. He has an interest in our interests. And so maybe I'll give him more of the time of day when he's actually in the class. Let alone, like I say, the environment that you have outside of class is actually more conducive to English, believe it or not. And when you have that lighter schedule during the day, this is going to cement your position with the teachers because they're like, wow, this guy's even staying after he should, and you get better relationships developing there. So this video has gone far, far longer than I had intended it to. So I'm going to try and shut it down now, but I hope that that was some useful information for you. And like I always like to do, I'll post down in the bottom a couple of links for you, some songs and a Japanese word. The song today is Try, off of the Coexist album from the XX. They're amazing. I know I've recommended them before, but I will continue to do so. They're so great. And second to that is a Japanese word, and it's very near and dear to my heart. It's something I love, and that's Niku. And this means meat. I love meat, so you should know Niku. All right, that's it. Like I like to say, thanks for tripping with Dave, and until we meet again next time, world, ciao for now.